The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA is heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 484 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing excellent.
You are excellent.
It's like 75 degrees here today. It was nice, sunny.
I pulled up, you had your shirt off, working outside.
That is not going to happen. No, nobody's going to appreciate that in the neighborhood. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Sally Smith.
What's going on, Sally?
Pepper Kepper.
Well, okay. Keep that Pepper Kepper.
Denise.
What's going on, Denise?
I want to have Gibby's babies.
Well, I do make cute babies.
I feel like somebody just put that in because I would have to say that.
I think that's exactly why they put that in there.
We had Demon Juice.
Oh, there's some demon juice.
Delilah Burke.
Hey, Delilah.
Vanessa Coolgis.
Coolgis.
Yep. Elizabeth Martin.
Hey, Martin.
And last but not least, Rob Thunderhide.
That's like strong, like Thunderhide.
Oh, very strong.
Yeah.
Then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Kristen Lewis.
Hey, thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, we appreciate all the support we get.
We do.
So we have a ton out right now. We just dropped a new Patreon episode Saturday night on Derek Medina, who the media called the Facebook killer. So check that out if you're on Patreon. If you're not, now's a great time to sign up.
Why did I, first thing in my mind came Funky called Medina?
Yeah, because that's how your mind works.
Yeah.
And on Unsolved, we have an episode out right now that's on Georgia Moses. She was last seen in 1997 walking with a friend to a gas station where she left with an unidentified man. And then on Thursday, our TCAT episode is on Linda Slayton, who was murdered inside her apartment while her sons slept in another room. And that's a fascinating case.
It really is. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it is. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am ready.
We're talking about the Ortiz family murders. Dixie and Lloyd Ortiz and their son Stephen were murdered inside their home during the early morning hours of Father's Day 2011, over a year into the investigation. Authorities received a tip from an inmate that would help solve the case.
I mean, I know there's always those tips that come from inmates, but as you know, I mean, how good are those tips?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this one must be good because it helps solve the case. But, you know, we've talked about a lot of inmates who, you know, they're wanting something, right? Whether it's early release, time off their sentence, ramen noodles, you know, whatever it is. And they're willing to roll the dice on information that, you know, may not have any validity whatsoever.
Yeah, they want some tit for tat.
Okay.
Whatever that really means. I really don't know what that really means at the end of the day, how that came about.
I have a feeling you do know what that means. Dixie and Lloyd Ortiz were a married couple who lived in El Rancho, New Mexico. You ever been to New Mexico?
I have. I've been through New Mexico.
Albuquerque is one of my favorite cities.
Beautiful town.
It is gorgeous. To stand in Albuquerque and look up and see snow on the mountains, that is so cool. And you're like in shorts and stuff.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me.
You're in shorts pretty much 95% of the time anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's climate controlled here in the basement.
That's true.
So they owned a business called Ortiz Tile Contractors for many years. Although Lloyd often suffered from back and knee pain, he continued working to support his family.
Well, that's a tough business to be in if you have back and knee pain.
Yeah, towel work, carpet work. You ever lay carpet and use those kickers and have to hit them with your knees? I did that one time. I was laid up for like a week.
I say you probably felt that for a while.
And I was young. I think I was like 20, in my early 20s, and it was brutal.
They make it look so easy.
They do.
Yeah.
Dixie managed the finances for the company and also worked with elderly and disabled patients in a local nursing home. So, the one thing that you'd have to say is that they were driven.
Right.
Lloyd owned his own business. Dixie managed the business and then also, worked at a nursing home. Dixie and Lloyd had 2 adult daughters, Angela Spinks and Sherry Ortiz Rios, and they had an adopted son, Stephen, who was only 21 years old when he was killed.
That's rough.
Dixie and Lloyd cared for 8 foster children before they adopted Stephen, who suffered from shaken baby syndrome in his early years before he was adopted. And you and I, on a recent episode, were talking about foster parents.
We were.
I think it was on the Erica Green episode. Really, I have to give it up to good foster parents. There have been some bad ones, right? There are some people who do it just for the money and don't care for the children the way they should. But I think the majority of people go into it out of the goodness of their heart, right? They want to help kids out.
And that's not going to be an easy thing to take on, but it's needed.
Yeah, it is needed. So it's amazing that there are people out there willing to step up and do that. Stephen was loved by his older sisters. When he first came to live with the family, they were told that he had a 95% chance of dying in his sleep. Because of this, Sherry would bring him into her room at night to watch over him.
Man, that would be tough.
Be scary.
It would be. I remember when my kids were born, I was nervous and I would, go sneak in there at nighttime a few times just to
check on
them, put my hand over their mouth or put, make sure I see.
Okay, that sounds nefarious.
Like hover over, not
I got
on.
you.
Yeah.
Doing like a breathing check or something.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I was like, is everything okay? Because you didn't want to wake them up because then that meant,
Yeah, they would cry. But I don't think you're supposed to hold your hands over babies' mouths either.
Well, I had to do what I had to do.
Stephen was partially paralyzed, but he still enjoyed playing the drums, riding around on his ATV, or working on cars. Stephen was in his school's special education program, and he graduated high school in 2008. Dixie and Lloyd were active in their community. Although Dixie worked 12 to 14 hours a day, she still found time to volunteer. The couple and their business had a positive reputation in El Rancho. So, I think that even says more about Dixie.
It does.
You're working essentially 2 jobs in some capacity, and then you're going to, in your quote unquote off time, volunteer while you're fostering children. You've adopted at a certain point, a child with special needs.
Yeah.
It says a lot about them.
I feel like I got some similar things, because I have the day job. I do the podcast, and then I volunteer at the senior place,
Are you calling that volunteering?
Well, I don't really get paid a lot.
Just ones.
So I'll just throw volunteering into that mix. That's about it.
You do bring a lot of joy, though, from what I've heard.
Well, there's to that 1 or 2 people out there. Yeah, they're one of them at least are happy.
Unfortunately, the EMTs are called. Sometimes have to be called.
Yeah, the crowds used to be bigger. Yeah.
Sherry Ortiz Rios, who lived in a house on her parents' property with her husband and kids, was the one who found her parents' bodies. On the evening of June 19, 2011, Sherry and her husband, Jesse Rios, spent the day cleaning a doctor's office and wetting the stucco of a building Jesse worked on the previous week. They got home around 3:30 p.m., and Sherry got started on a Father's Day dinner that they planned to bring over to her parents' house. Around 7:15 p.m., Sherry sent her teenage son over to tell Lloyd that dinner was almost ready. Her son returned a few minutes later and said the doors were locked. Sherry went over to check herself. She saw that the newspaper was still at the front door, which was bolted from the inside. She used a spare key to get into the house. Her parents' dogs came running up to her. And, there's a situation like this in many of the cases that we talk about where, when someone is found by the family, there is a scenario where, for whatever reason, they make the decision. They have to go over and check on this person.
Right.
And most of the time it's because they didn't show up to work or they got a call from somebody that said they haven't seen them. This is a little different. I mean, they live right next to each other, basically on the same property. I think they're supposed to come over for dinner. But when Sherry's son goes over, there's no answer. My thought is that this wouldn't be, right, 5-alarm time. You're using your key because you think, I don't know, they're asleep, they're watching TV, they can't hear it. I don't know what you're thinking, but I can't imagine that the mind immediately goes to something horrible.
Yeah, I can't either. I think you're just thinking maybe they forgot about the plans and maybe they just can't hear.
Or maybe they went somewhere. They forgot about it and they went somewhere.
And that's true too.
But she gets in, right? And like I said, her parents' dogs came running up to her, which I'm sure they knew her well. So there's not going to be, too much of a fuss there. But Sherry found her mother in her bedroom, clutching a pillow. Sherry recalled to the Santa Fe New Mexican, as I started getting closer, I saw dried blood on her face. She saw another body that she thought was her father, lying face down on the kitchen floor. And that's when she ran out of the house. But it was actually Stephen's body in the kitchen. Lloyd was in the backyard with several injuries to his upper head and torso. Dixie had trauma to her right temple, and Stephen had injuries on his head and shoulders. So, this is undoubtedly a very gruesome scene.
It would be very hard to stomach to see your brother, your mom, your dad,
dead in this condition. Yeah. It would be tough to see somebody you didn't even know in this type of condition, but obviously it makes it much worse that it's your immediate family.
Absolutely.
Investigators initially thought the family members were shot, but they didn't identify this as the official cause of death because the autopsies hadn't been done. On June 21st, police announced that the initial reports about the family being shot were incorrect. The autopsy determined the family died from blunt force trauma and stab wounds. The deaths were reclassified from suspicious to a triple homicide. And I wonder if the suspicious comes from, was there an initial thought that maybe it was a murder-suicide?
Maybe.
Now, to be that, there would have to be a gun by them, right? Because if not, I feel like you got to rule that out pretty quickly.
I would think so.
On June 23rd, State Police Sergeant Tim Johnson said he couldn't confirm any details and noted that a suspect had not been identified. A source familiar with the investigation told the Santa Fe New Mexican that the family was bludgeoned to death with a pickaxe. Stephen was hit 17 times.
Wow.
Lloyd 7 times, and Dixie twice.
Makes you wonder why so many times on Stephen.
Yes.
Was it because he was a bigger threat, or was there more anger towards Stephen?
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. To me, the number does jump out at you. Dixie only twice, Lloyd 7, Stephen 17. And here's a young male. He's 21 years old, but like we said, he's partially paralyzed. So is he that big of a threat? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or is somebody really upset with him? And he's kind of the main focus. According to the source, when police arrived at the home, there was nothing apparent to debunk the shooting theory because the puncture wounds from the pickaxe appeared to be bullet entry wounds.
I get it. A pickaxe can resemble a bullet hole. If
it would create a pretty serious, nasty wound.
Yeah.
But I still go back to, how is it not a homicide if there's no gun laying next to any of the victims? What else could it be? Can't be an accident.
Right.
And it's a little tough to say murder-suicide when there's no gun found.
Yeah, I mean, someone would have to, as they're falling down, throw the gun very far.
To a place where nobody could find it,
Yeah.
right? After the autopsy changed the cause of death ruling, police conducted another search around the home and found a pickaxe in a field near the house. After the murders, the Santa Fe, New Mexican reported that 17 marijuana plants were found inside the family home. Two close friends said the marijuana was for medicinal use by Stephen, who had a prescription. Now, I don't know if 17 marijuana plants is a lot or not. I've never, grown my own marijuana.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seems like a lot to me, but
what's behind that door over there?
well, we don't talk about that.
Oh, okay.
You mean where the black light is emanating from underneath? We don't talk about that.
Oh, okay. I saw those water pipes going in there too, so I wasn't sure. I would think 17's probably more than the average person would need.
Mm-hmm. I thought there were some states that had a rule about how many plants you could have legally. And I thought in some states it's as little as like 4.
Yeah,
now, I could be
right.
wrong about that, but
I think in our state it's limited to no more than 6, I think.
is it? Police sources confirmed the marijuana plants were among many leads pursued as possible motives for the murders. And I would think they'd have to be, right? Anytime that there are drugs involved, and technically marijuana is a drug, right? You have to factor that into the equation as a possible motive. One friend told the Santa Fe, New Mexican, family and close friends have known about the plants, and who knows who else may have known about them. But it was not for recreational use, and they definitely weren't selling. The stories didn't say that they were drug dealers, but that's what people think now. If police knew that wasn't the case and that the plants were for medicinal use, but never tried to clear that up before the media got hold of it, that only adds to our anger here in El Rancho right now. And I could understand that, right? We talked about these people. They seem to be stand-up individuals.
Right.
So if you're a close friend of them and it seems like they're being painted as drug dealers, that would upset you.
Oh, absolutely. If they're pillars of the community, now you're throwing some shade on them for what? Because they grew marijuana plants in their home, most likely for their son.
In a world of oversharing, thy dating life remains sacred. Behold, the new Ashley Madison. The app for discreet dating. No public posts, no feed. Just adults connecting in private. Download Ashley Madison today. Blessed are the discreet.
Months passed with no arrests and no information released to the public. A year after the murders, State Police Chief Robert Schilling held a news conference and said investigators had conducted over 120 interviews, collected over 50 pieces of evidence, executed 10 search warrants, and run 30 impact operations in El Rancho, but they hadn't arrested anyone and were calling on citizens to come forward with information. So I think you look at the numbers and you'd have to say, well, I mean, they're working on it for sure.
Yeah, it's just not sitting idle.
But you'd also have to say they really don't have anything or nothing has come from all of that work. Sherry Ortiz Rios did a series of interviews with the Santa Fe, New Mexican, expressing her frustration with how the investigation was handled. She also revealed that she and her husband, Jesse Rios, had not been officially eliminated as suspects. And does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. I mean, they had access to the house. They were very close, obviously, to the family. And maybe you could say there could have been a reason that they wanted this to happen.
Well, I'm sure there most likely would have been a financial benefit to them, being the daughter and son-in-law. Sherry recalled that approximately 14 hours after the bodies were found, after police had searched the house, a representative of the Office of the Medical Investigator gave Sherry a card with the names of 3 crime scene cleanup companies on it. She called one of the companies because She didn't want her kids or her sister to be exposed to the crime scene. The crew arrived the Monday after the murders and returned the following morning. They were present when state police returned to look for the murder weapon after the autopsy results came in. By this point, several items were already in a biohazard bag. Sherry's husband, Jesse, said he believed the house should have been sealed for 3 days until the weapon was found.
Yeah, I kind of understand what he's trying to say. It's like, maybe you shouldn't have gave us that direction to call the cleanup team in so soon. And the house should have been sealed up until you had everything you needed to have out of that home and made sure you did your, 2, 3, 4 additional checks for whatever you thought might be in the house, around the house, before we went in and cleaned it all up.
Well, obviously they released the house to them.
Yeah.
So the police must have thought that they had done everything they needed to do. Now, whether they did, that's another question. State police had still not publicized theories about the motive. Sherry revealed that Lloyd's wallet, which contained some cash, was still on the kitchen counter. 2 safes, one that contained $4,000 and another that contained $80,000, were undisturbed. Now, you can make of that what you will. I don't know that every person is going to want to try to grapple with a safe.
Right.
I don't know what kind of safes these were. Maybe they were easy to get into. Maybe they weren't. But depending on what type they were, I don't know how to crack a safe. I know you, as a Jason Bourne type person, probably can do it. Actually, I think you're more Charlize Theron than Jason Bourne. But, she was a safe cracker in that one movie.
Italian Job?
The Italian Job.
Yeah, I can open up a lot of safes.
And that's also if the person even knew how much money was in there.
Exactly. They would have to know that.
Yeah, 80 grand's a lot of money.
It is.
Now, is it worth taking a chance of still being in the house and being discovered for $4,000? No, maybe not to somebody. But what does it mean when there's a wallet laying in open sight, plain sight? Because to me, what are you there for?
Yeah.
Are you there to rob, or are you there to just kill these people? And that's a big question, right? Motive is a huge question.
And it seems like it wasn't a robbery because they didn't take the wallet and they, sounds like they didn't touch the safes. So like you said, you don't know how big the safes are. Were they one of those safes that are 1,000 pounds or 2,000 pounds, or are they one of those floor ones that might be, 200 pounds?
Or a little one that you can carry around, like a little fire-rated safe.
That's true, yeah.
And then my other thought is, if you knew how much money was there, you don't have to break in. You could have forced one of the occupants of the home to open the safe up.
Yeah.
Before they were ultimately killed. That didn't happen either. So I think you have to take all of that into consideration. And then obviously not checking the wallet for money. It seems like robbery was not the motive for these killings whatsoever.
I mean, any house I walk in where I see a wallet on the table, I check for money.
Yeah. And you're not even there to commit a crime. You just see a wallet.
I'm just nosy. By the way, your wallet doesn't have any cash in it right now.
I know that's not true because the whole family has a code Gibby on the nights that you come over. We take all of our valuables and we lock them in the safe because we know you're going to be here. According to the Santa Fe New Mexican, a police report documented an interview with an unnamed female who said someone mentioned that Stephen was killed over $5,000 of methamphetamines, which were unpaid for. However, this same report noted that the source changed her story. Other reports claim that the Ortiz family sold drugs out of their house. Sherry denied that her brother was involved with illegal drugs. So here's this drug talk, right? That one family member was so upset about. There does seem to have been quite a bit of it. I'm sure it was, in some of the papers. One of the thoughts that I had was, if they're selling drugs and making quite a bit of money from it, then why is Dixie working 12, 14 hours a day at multiple jobs?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No. I mean, could it be a cover? I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, we said it, right? Lloyd owned his own business. Dixie was working. She even was volunteering. And they're taking care of Stephen, who's partially paralyzed. It doesn't seem like the type of family that would be selling drugs, but that doesn't really mean anything.
No, I mean, look at Walter. I mean, he was working at the high school.
Teaching chemistry.
Yeah, and then working at the car wash and, also dabbling a little bit in that RV out in the desert.
It's a very apt comparison. Police reports also referred to a 16-year-old boy who lived with the family for a period of time before he was kicked out after being accused of stealing marijuana. In an interview, the teenager, who was allegedly affiliated with a gang, said he lost contact with Stephen and his family after he was blamed for things he didn't do. So you got a possible gang-related component here.
Yeah.
A month before the murders, the boy was in the area and heard Stephen playing loud music. He jumped the fence and entered the backyard. He hid behind a bush when he heard Lloyd and someone else come outside, then jumped up and roared. Lloyd seemed angry and asked what he was doing in his backyard.
I could get that. I'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What are you doing back here? And why are you roaring at me?
And jumping out and trying to scare me.
Yeah.
In her interview, Sherry explained that she was trying to keep her parents' house, but she needed proceeds from the life insurance policy to do so, which she couldn't get because the underwriter required a written statement from police stipulating that the beneficiaries were not suspects.
I mean, that's typical for an insurance policy, right? They don't want to pay somebody out
who is acquiring the money through murder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it, they don't really want to pay the money out for anything.
Period.
So
yeah.
if they can find any reason, they're going to. According to Sherry, they've told us that we're no longer suspects. They've released us as suspects, but they won't send that documentation to the life insurance company. And I think it's a sticky situation here, right? The police obviously have to look at the family because there are kind of inherent motives for family members to kill each other when it comes to life insurance if you're a beneficiary. But at the same time, if you didn't have anything to do with it, like if you're Sherry and her husband and Sherry's sister too, it's got to be really tough for you because number one, you got this kind of cloud hanging over you. And then number two, you don't want your parents' house to go into foreclosure, but you can't do anything about it unless you have the life insurance proceeds.
Yeah, but you can't get those because, like you said, the police department's not going to write that letter yet unless they absolutely have zeroed out that it's you. They're not going to write that letter.
Sherry recalled that the last time she saw her parents and brother was the Friday before Father's Day. She and her husband went to a casino on Saturday night and returned early Sunday. Her son was on a camping trip that night, and her daughter was at a sleepover. Sherry also said that when officers arrived at the house, an agent approached her, and according to her, asked me what I did with the gun used to kill my mom, my dad, and my brother. And apparently her husband was asked the same question.
Kind of offensive.
Well, and we said it, right? Originally, they were under the impression that all three members of the family were killed from gunshots. So, yeah, I mean, in the wake of finding out what happened, to be asked that question is, I'm sure, a gut punch if you didn't have anything to do with it. Sherry's sister, Angela Spinks, attended a public session with a psychic who was visiting Albuquerque and asked who killed her family in front of a crowd of people. The psychic accused Jesse Rios. Sherry and Jesse also claimed that they asked to come to the recent state police news conference, but they were told not to. State Police Chief Robert Schilling denied this. And we've talked about psychics for years, right?
Yeah.
I know some people really believe in them. I never really have. I still like, like the Conjuring movies and stuff like that. I just don't really believe in much of that.
Okay.
But I love the movies.
Yeah, you do. I know you like that character in The Conjuring, the one that has the psychic abilities. The wife.
The wife, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lorraine?
Lorraine Warren,
Yeah.
played by Vera Farmiga, I believe.
Very good. Yeah.
I told you, I've seen them a bunch.
Yeah, you have.
I do like them. But I never have really believed in ghosts and the supernatural and things like that, mainly because I've never experienced it. I think people who have experienced something or believe they've experienced something, obviously may believe in it.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe in things that I just haven't experienced.
You have to experience it to believe it. You're a non-believer until you experience it. Then you are a believer.
I would say that's probably true.
Yeah.
But you have this psychic telling Angela that it was Jesse Rios, her sister's husband, her brother-in-law, who killed her family. Now, what are the chances that this psychic watched the news, read the newspaper, knew who Jesse was, knew that maybe the police had thoughts that they had something to do with it? I mean, does that sound plausible?
Possible.
Or is it more likely that she just knows who the killer is? I don't want to shake your belief in psychics, but I'm kind of leaning towards the, saw it in the paper type of deal.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that way.
Over 3 years after the murders, on February 12th, 2015, police arrested 20-year-old Nicholas Ortiz. Nicholas, who has no relation to the Ortiz family, was charged with 3 counts of murder, as well as evidence tampering and bribery or intimidation of a witness. It had been years since state police offered any information on the investigation. Nicholas's name hadn't even been made public prior to his arrest. A court affidavit filed on February 16th stated that a scheme to steal money from a safe inside the house led to the murders.
Well, if you're going to scheme to take money from the safe, you should probably do that before the murders.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but, what if somebody doesn't cooperate, right? What if Lloyd says, no, I'm not opening the safe? At some point, whether you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask, especially if you're not wearing a mask, does somebody make the decision that this ain't going to happen, but I can't just leave here?
Yeah. I'm just wondering how you hold 3 people at bay with a pickaxe.
Yeah, I don't know that you do it by yourself.
Yeah.
A state police investigator wrote that at various times in recent years, he interviewed cousins Jose and Ashley Robal, who told him they were with Nicholas on the night of the murders. Both witnesses said Nicholas told them he killed the family. The investigator wrote that Nicholas, who was only 16 at the time of the murders, was very familiar with the residents and had stayed with the victims on previous occasions. So I think, that right there explains how he would know about the safes.
Right.
He might even have an inkling of how much money is kept in the safes on a regular basis. But what struck me was the thought that a 16-year-old could kill 3 individuals with a pickaxe, the way that these 3 were killed. These were very horrific murders.
They were. Definitely had to be a troubled teen.
Yeah, I think you'd have to say that. According to the affidavit, Ashley Robal was incarcerated on an unrelated charge in October 2012 when she contacted the investigator and said she wanted to provide information about the murders. Her account of events, as well as information provided by Jose Robal during a September 2014 interview, provided the narrative of the plot to steal cash and marijuana from the Ortiz household. So this is where, as we talked about in the very beginning, right? The tip from an inmate comes in that leads them in the direction of the killer.
Yeah.
But why does it come in? It's because she's picked up on a separate charge.
Yep.
And probably doesn't want to be held responsible for that charge. And so she's going to roll over on Nicholas, most likely in the hopes of leniency on whatever she's facing right now.
Time to make a deal.
And that's a deal that authorities would easily make.
Oh, for sure.
because I don't know what the exact charge was. I'm assuming it's not murder, so can they make whatever that was go away in exchange for getting a murder conviction or 3 murder convictions? Yeah, I would say that's a deal that most people would make.
Yeah.
Ashley told a state police investigator that she drove Nicholas and Jose, who at that time was only 15 years old, to the crime scene on the night of the murders. Jose said that as he and Nicholas approached the house, he changed his mind because he didn't want to kill the family, and he started walking back. Nicholas said he would kill the family himself and had a pickaxe that Ashley allegedly gave him to use as a weapon. Nicholas later told the Roball cousins that after he knocked on the back door, Lloyd came out into the backyard and he hit him with the pickaxe. He killed Dixie in bed and killed Stephen in the kitchen. The affidavit stated, according to Jose, Nicholas said when Stephen looked at him, it was the hardest part. Nicholas kept swinging at him, and after he killed them, he panicked and ran out of the house. I mean, this is a 16-year-old kid. It sounds to me, Gibbs, like he had an idea of what he was going to do, but he didn't really have a plan. And when he got there, all hell kind of broke loose, and whatever plan he might have thought about just kind of evaporated, and he's like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. Didn't even get what he wanted. He just reacted, killed 3 people, freaked out, and ran off.
Ashley said that when she picked Nicholas up that night, he had blood on his clothing and had plastic bags over his shoes and socks over his hands. She drove Nicholas to her grandparents' house, where he told her and Jose that he killed the family and didn't get the money. After he showered, she gave him fresh clothing and drove him home. He cried the entire way.
I'm sure it really was impactful at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was for a 16-year-old kid. This other kid was only 15 years old. He had the good sense at least to back out of the plan, get out of the car and walk away. But he's still implicated in some ways, right?
Yeah.
He was involved in the planning. And then you have Ashley, who allegedly provided the murder weapon and drove them to and from the crime scene. So she's obviously implicated in the murders too, but she's the one who's cutting the deal. And what do you always say?
First one cuts the deal, wins.
Gets the cheese.
That's right.
Or is it the first one to cut the cheese? I forget. I know there's a saying in there somewhere. Nicholas called her the next day and mentioned his intent was to rob the family of $20,000 that he knew was in a safe in the closet. He admitted, I killed them, and warned her not to say anything. $20,000.
Yeah.
For 3 lives. Now, I get it. To a 16-year-old, $20,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to most people.
Sure.
Unless you're a really rich person. But, juxtaposed with the lives of 3 people, it seems so inconsequential. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I just don't think they think that far.
No.
About those.
No,
things.
people who do this, they don't think that far ahead. It's like they want what they want.
Yep.
And if people get hurt in the process, well, so be it. The affidavit also indicated that just a few days after the murders, a resident of El Rancho told state police that Nicholas told him the day after the murders that he killed them, but didn't specify who. And that's kind of shocking that the state police were made aware of this and they don't connect it to murders that happened just a few days prior.
You think it would be fairly easy to connect those dots.
Yeah.
Also always bugs me, when these people kill other people, that they're so loose with their lips.
Well, again, this is not a criminal mastermind.
No.
Right? This is a 16-year-old kid who is probably scared to death and is going to either let it slip accidentally or maybe not accidentally because they're just worried about it and they're talking to people. I don't know. An ex-girlfriend told an investigator in July 2013 that she was dating Jose Robal at the time of the murders And he told her that night over the phone that he and Nicholas planned to burglarize the Ortiz home and take their marijuana. So it's kind of shocking that all of these people kind of knew, right? There were a number of people who knew about this. One person even went to the state police very early on, but somehow they didn't put it together.
Yeah, I think that's disturbing to me.
It is.
That piece there.
Now, I understand if the ex-girlfriend doesn't, actually go to the police, then they wouldn't know about that. But on August 3rd, 2015, Ashley Roball pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit burglary and tampering with evidence. She also pleaded guilty to burglary, conspiracy, and evidence tampering in a different case. So apparently she was a burglar, a conspirer, and a evidence tamperer.
At a very young age.
Jose revealed in court that he was offered immunity in exchange for his testimony. He testified that he and Nicholas talked about burglarizing the Ortiz home to get money and marijuana plants. According to Jose, after they realized the family was home that night, Ashley suggested they killed him. She gave him and Nicholas socks to put over their hands, as well as tissue paper and plastic bags to cover their shoes, and drove them to the residence. Jose changed his mind and agreed to wait outside while Nicholas killed the family and to help carry items from the house. But instead, he ran home.
Well, Ashley sounds like the little mastermind.
Yeah, like much more of a mastermind than what she initially said.
Yeah.
And it's strange because she is the one that kickstarted this whole thing.
Right.
Right? With her tip. But it turns out that Jose is the one that gets the immunity to testify against Nicholas, most likely because he didn't participate. He did decide to walk away. Now, He's culpable because he planned it. He went there, but easier, I think, to let him get immunity than certainly Nicholas, who did the killings, but maybe even Ashley, because it sounds like she was very much more involved than what she initially let on. Jose testified that Nicholas knew the house well because he'd lived with the family. Jose and his mother also once helped Nicholas steal money from the home before the killings. His mother was unaware what was going on when they dropped Nicholas off. They later picked him up and loaded a 5-gallon jug filled with cash and coins into the vehicle. So it sounds like Nicholas had a very good understanding of the home, what was in there, the marijuana plants, that they kept cash.
I'm just curious if you went and picked up your kid at somebody's house and they load a 5-gallon bucket of coins and bills. Are you just going to be like, hey, honey, how'd your day go? You're not going to be like, hey, what is that?
Well, even if I didn't know what was in it, bringing a 5-gallon bucket that you didn't take with you is going to garner a bunch of questions. Sure. I'm going to want to see it. I'm going to want to know what's there. And then once I see it, I'm going to have even more questions.
And it's not going to be something you can easily just carry with one arm, right?
No, coins are heavy.
Yeah. 5 gallons of coins?
Cash doesn't weigh anything, but coins, they can get really heavy. Jose admitted under cross-examination that he had burglarized homes and lied to federal agents who first questioned him. So, no doubt, he wasn't a Boy Scout either in this whole thing. But my thought is they needed his cooperation. They needed his testimony to get the conviction against Nicholas, which is why he was granted immunity. Ashley Roball denied that she ever suggested to Nicholas and Jose that they should kill the Ortiz family. She knew they intended to burglarize the house and admitted to driving them there. She picked Nicholas up 20 minutes later and gave him clean clothes and a trash bag to dispose of his bloody garments. She denied giving them socks to put on their hands. So, we've got an argument here, or conflicting information, right? Who's telling the truth? But even the stuff that Ashley does admit to is pretty damning. She knew about it ahead of time.
She did.
She drove them there. She helped Nicholas clean up right? Gave him clean clothes, helped him dispose of his bloody clothes. All of that is extremely criminal.
It is. She's very involved.
She admitted that she lied to state police because she was afraid someone would find out she talked to investigators and harm her grandparents whom she lived with. She was afraid of both Jose and Nicholas. Nicholas had warned her not to say anything, and she knew what he was capable of. And that might be true. It also might be true that she didn't want anybody to know the role she played.
I definitely think she didn't want anybody to know the role she played.
Ashley said she came forward a year later because of her guilty conscience and because she had already been helping the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office identify suspect in area burglaries at the time. So did she come forward because of her guilty conscience or because she got picked up on another charge and she thought she could, use this information to get out of that?
Yeah, it's the latter.
I'm not buying the guilty conscience. I'm really not. The court also heard from Sherry Ortiz and her son, Robert. Nicholas was good friends with Robert and came over every day after school, often stayed for dinner, and sometimes stayed overnight. Sherry testified that Nicholas stayed with them for several months and was welcomed into her parents' home. Robert said Nicholas felt at home with his family, and they sometimes spent evenings at his grandparents' house, visiting and smoking marijuana with them and Stephen. So how much of an additional shock and kind of gut punch is it to find out that the perpetrator is someone that, you welcomed into your home with open arms?
Oh, I think it's a huge gut punch.
You made them dinner. They stayed overnight. They were friends with your child.
You smoked a joint or a bowl with them. Come on.
There's a bond there.
Absolutely, there's a bond.
One night, the family discovered Nicholas hiding in their yard. Nicholas jumped up and scared him. His grandparents scolded Nicholas before they left to get dinner. Nicholas started acting strangely and said he had to leave. He then turned to Robert and said, "Just hit me in the face, dude. Just hit me right now." Okay, it's kind of a weird thought process.
It is.
Also, what is it with all these people hiding and jumping out and scaring, these people? Now, they maybe were smoking quite a bit of marijuana. I don't know if that played into it or not. Robert didn't hit him, and Nicholas walked away into a field. Robert never saw him again until after the murders.
Bizarre.
Well, it sounds like, this event either, had a profound impact on Nicholas. It definitely must have either put a strain on their relationship, or Nicholas just didn't want to be around them because he was embarrassed, he was upset. I don't know what.
Yeah. It is strange that he just walked out in the field and disappeared. I remember that happened to me. I was young. I was at my grandparents' farm.
Was it after you guys made that baseball field?
Yeah.
In the corn?
Yeah. Yep. We built it.
And they came.
They came. So, yeah.
On August 5th, the judge bound Nicholas over for trial. His trial started on May 17, 2016. Prosecutors noted that the murders occurred weeks after the Ortiz family kicked Nicholas out of their house for stealing marijuana. The jury heard testimony from key witnesses Jose and Ashley Robal, who gave differing stories.
I guess differing stories to protect each other.
No, I think to protect themselves.
Themselves.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget Jose's got immunity. So he can tell the absolute truth.
Yeah, he has nothing to lose.
Ashley, on the other hand, I'm not sure can tell the absolute truth because she's facing a number of charges.
Yeah. Jose could not tell the truth because he's upset with somebody, but I think probably under oath it's going to be unlikely.
Yeah, he's not going to want to take the chance of messing up his immunity deal.
Exactly.
In opening statements, defense attorney Dan Marlowe argued that the two witnesses couldn't be telling the truth. Jose testified that at first he and Nicholas planned to steal from the family because they needed money. Ashley pushed them to kill the family and provided the murder weapon. He and Nicholas both refused at first, but Ashley was being persistent, trying to convince us to do it. And, that doesn't sound like the most believable thing in the world to me. I get it. She might have said, hey, just kill him.
You're right.
But being persistent, trying to convince us to do it is a far cry from we had no choice but to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could have just said no very easily. Jose eventually agreed to wait outside while Nicholas killed the family, and he would go in and help him remove valuables from the home. He changed his mind, though, once they arrived at the house. During cross-examination, Jose said he had a written statement promising he wouldn't be charged if he testified truthfully. The defense claimed prosecutors never provided such a document and asked for a mistrial. The judge asked both sides to file written arguments on the mistrial motion, which was denied the next day. Ashley denied Jose's version of events and said the boys planned the robbery on their own. She only agreed to give them a ride in exchange for a share of the stolen goods. She was surprised when news spread about the murders. She recanted her earlier statements that Nicholas was drenched in blood when she picked him up, but said she did see several bloodstains on his pants.
Okay, then why did you say originally he was drenched in blood?
And again, she had already admitted that, number one, she gave him a change of clothes, and number two, she helped him dispose of the bloody clothes he was wearing. The jury also heard that state police interviewed Nicholas less than a week after the murders. Each time they talked to him, he denied any involvement and said he had no reason to kill the family. So we mentioned that there was a tip that came in very early on.
Yeah.
Like within a few days about Nicholas. It does sound as though they interviewed him multiple times, but they couldn't get him to admit anything. Even when told by police in 2013 that the Roballs had talked to investigators and that cell records placed him near the home, he continued to deny his role and claimed he was with his parents and sisters that night. Prosecutors presented cell records showing phone and text interactions between Nicholas, Jose, and Ashley. They didn't present the content of those texts or calls, nor any physical evidence placing Nicholas at the scene.
Just show that they were communicating.
Which I thought was a little strange because if they're all friends and two of them are related, why would they not be communicating?
Exactly.
So to me, what are you actually showing? Now, if you got cell records that are putting them at the home that night, that's different. But just records of phone and text interactions without the actual content
right
of those, I don't know what that means.
I mean, if you had that, it changes everything.
Nicholas's parents both testified he was home that night, but their stories didn't match.
It's going to be tough to believe parents of a suspect, let alone a suspect that's 16 years old. Because I got to believe that you're probably really concerned
as a parent, and you would do anything to try to protect your kids, maybe even lie for them. Yeah, I get that. I think though, when your stories don't match, it kind of gives it away.
Yeah.
They also testified that Nicholas didn't spend extended periods away from the home, except for when he stayed with an aunt in the fall. Nicholas told police he spent the day of the murders with the Roballs, but went home at 10 p.m. and went to bed. However, his father, Leonard, testified that the family ate dinner together and watched movies until everyone went to sleep. Desiree Ortiz testified the entire family walked on the track at the local wellness center before they went to the store to get groceries, then went home to eat dinner and watch movies. She couldn't say for sure if Nicholas was there all night because she was working the night shift and left at 9:30 p.m.
I feel like the family should have got together
and said, here's our story. Everybody get in line with it. Leonard testified that Nicholas came into his room after midnight to wish him a happy Father's Day. On June 1st, 2016, the jury announced they were unable to reach a verdict. They were deadlocked 8-4 in favor of guilt on the murder charges, so the judge declared a mistrial. Nicholas's retrial started on November 29th, 2016. The prosecution described Nicholas as a calculated killer who destroyed a family, while the defense pointed out the same weaknesses from the original trial: lack of physical evidence and inconsistent witness statements. Then I get why possibly that the first jury could have been deadlocked. You've got, the row balls up there telling, contrasting stories.
Yes.
And differing versions of events.
And you're thinking, why are their stories not matching?
And it doesn't sound like there's this mountain of evidence, right? Physical evidence putting him at the scene, or, eyewitnesses or really anything like that. But they went through the trial. Didn't take long, because on December 9th, 2016, Nicholas Ortiz was found guilty of 3 counts of murder, aggravated burglary, and conspiracy to commit aggravated burglary. On June 14th, 2018, Ashley was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with 6 years suspended for conspiracy to commit aggravated burglary and tampering with evidence. So it was almost 2 years after Nicholas was found guilty on the second trial that she was sentenced. But 20 years, no joke.
No, it's not.
In March 2019, the state Supreme Court reversed a district court ruling that would have granted Nicholas a third trial. On October 28th of that year, Nicholas received 3 concurrent 25-year sentences for murder.
Good.
It is good, but they're concurrent.
I don't like when they do that, though.
So it's basically 25 years.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he was only 16 years old. But to me, with the heinousness of the murders, you would think that he could be tried as an adult. I mean, these were adult-like murders, killing 3 people with a pickaxe.
And maybe the jury looked at him as a kid when it came to this.
Yeah, it's possible. The family had asked for life without parole, and prosecutors wanted a 72-year sentence. So, 3 25-year sentences that are concurrent, that's a far cry from what the family and even the prosecutors wanted. Nicholas spoke at the sentencing hearing, telling the court he took a wrong turn early in life, but has since found God and changed. He said, "I've come a long way from the child I was at 16 to the man I am at 24 today. I know I made some mistakes early on. I'm very sorry for the heartbreak everyone has had to endure. I did not do what I'm facing my life because of today." I was a little shocked that it took like 8 years for him to be sentenced.
That's a long time.
The sentencing occurred almost 3 years after he was convicted. Now, I know there was appeals and things like that, but I'm still shocked that the sentencing took that long. On August 2nd, 2021, the New Mexico Supreme Court upheld Nicholas's conviction and sentence. According to court documents, before sentencing, the defense argued that Nicholas should be given an amenability hearing afforded to juvenile defendants to determine how likely it is he could be rehabilitated and whether he should be sentenced as an adult. The state argued that such hearings are only granted to defendants between the ages of 14 and 18, convicted of second-degree murder or lesser crimes, or defendants 14 and younger, convicted of first-degree murder. Nicholas was 16 at the time of his arrest and was convicted of felony first-degree murder.
So he wasn't eligible.
The judge held a hearing, but adjourned the proceedings without making a ruling. Nicholas's defense argued that the denial of an amenability hearing violated his rights, but the Supreme Court found that the sentencing procedure applied to this case and didn't violate his rights.
I mean, look, I think he got lucky.
With sentencing?
Yes.
I think so too. Now, losing 25 years of your life is never good. But for killing 3 people, that is a pretty light sentence. I get it. He was only 16 years old.
Yeah.
But most 16-year-olds that are convicted of a triple homicide in the manner that these occurred, I think would get more than 25 years in most instances. So I'm with you. I think he got pretty lucky as far as the amount of time that he's going to have to serve. The New Mexico Corrections Department offender search indicates that Ashley is out on probation. According to KRQE, Nicholas Ortiz has been in custody since his 2015 arrest and will receive credit for time served. He'll be required to serve 85% of his sentence, and he'll be eligible for parole in late 2036 or early 2037.
Got 10 more years.
Yeah, and I think if you're the family, you're just not thrilled about that. You just don't think that 25 years or 85% of 25 years is anywhere close to paying for the crime that occurred and what was taken away from you. You know, a mother, a father, a brother.
Yeah.
That's a lot to lose.
Yeah, I don't think you can be happy with the way it turned out.
No.
But
And you're not going to be happy when he gets out in about 10 years.
no.
But I don't know that there's really much that can be done about it. But that's it for our episode on the Ortiz family murders. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear it.
Hi, guys. I love your show. I'm in the middle of listening to the Erica Green case, and it's got me shaking up. Thank you for bringing attention to all these cases. Oh, this was a rough one. Anyhow, I love your show. I listen to it every day when I'm driving, delivering mail. It helps pass the time, so I appreciate you guys. And, yeah, keep your own time ticking. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate the voicemail. You can hear the emotion there.
Absolutely.
And it was a tough case.
It was.
It was a tough case to research. It was a tough case to cover, to talk about. But some of these cases, they need to be talked about.
They do.
I think Erica deserved
Yeah.
to have her story told, but no doubt, very tough one.
Very tough.
Hey, Gibby and Mike, it's Rick Smith. On Patreon, we're Holly and Rick Smith. Been following you for a long time. My wife introduced me to you guys in 2017, and you got me through a long stretch of working out of state. Have not called you yet, but today, Iowa State Cyclones kicked the crap out of your Kentucky Wildcats. So I just had to say, keep your head on a swivel and go Cyclones.
Boy, did they ever. And man, I was really hoping someone would call in and remind me of that.
Yeah.
No, they really did. They took it to my Wildcats, and they were just so much better.
They were, man. So much better.
I thought we had a chance in the first half, but the second half wasn't even close.
You had no chance.
Had no chance.
Cyclones kicked their butts.
You have no idea what he's even talking about. You didn't watch the game. You're just parroting what he said. But we appreciate the support and the call very much.
We do.
We did have some mailbag. Tori Rasmussen sent in some Harley chips from the great state of Utah.
Awesome.
So we appreciate that very much. All right, buddy, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.